to order the January 9th meeting of 2025. Happy New Year, everyone. At this time, I'll recognize Councilmember Con Johnson for our ceremonial opening.
Thank you, Mayor. I was excited to take this opportunity to wish everybody a very happy New Year. I hope everybody had a bit of a break and some family time and some rest and relaxation. And with no, here's the thing I'm talking about, I wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge all of the work and all of the beautiful displays that were put out around town for the holidays. I can say it has been a pleasure to get the public feedback about the holiday displays, particularly the lights and the stuff that's downtown. So what a lot of people, I don't think, realize is that that's our public works team that's out doing the labor it takes to put those up. Quite a few times I was walking by with my dog, and I was like, great job, it looks great, So it's a lot to put up and a lot to put down, and I just want to acknowledge, that our public works team is doing this, it's in addition to what they typically do. And there's a lot of folks on our staff who've worked really hard to make that every year just a little bit better and a little bit brighter. So I know it added significantly to, the sights and sounds as I walk around town and just got me kind of in the holiday spirit this year. So I wanted to express my personal heartfelt thanks here, and I think a lot of people agree, and just wish everybody a really happy New Year. And please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Carissa. First order of business is to adopt the agenda. I would entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to recognitions, reports, and presentations. And the first item is the Microtransit Feasibility Study's final report, and Kelly Blasey will do this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am here tonight to present the results from the final report of our recent Microtransit Feasibility Study. This is a new type of service that is not currently eligible for Wake Transit Plan or federal grant funding, so it will require town funding for implementation. However, we are not asking Council to take action on anything tonight other than to accept the final report. Capital and operating requests to support service will be submitted for consideration in the FY26 budget. So I'll start with a quick refresher on our existing service. 6 routes make up the core of the Go Cary service, operating 7 days a week. The ACX, or Apex Cary Express, currently operates Monday through Friday during peak commute times. The Downtown Loop operates Thursday through Sunday, and we have 2 new routes anticipated to begin later this summer once the construction of new bus stops is complete. And finally, Go Cary provides regional connections to Go Triangle, Go Raleigh, Go Apex, and the Morrisville Smart Shuttle, in addition to operating service on behalf of Apex and Morrisville. And I'm sure it's no surprise, this is my favorite slide to keep sharing. Our service is continuing to grow, and our ridership numbers are just continue to go up. We had a dip as a result of COVID, but we've rebounded quickly, and as you can see, each year continues to outperform the last. So it leads me to the reason that I'm here tonight, the results of the Microtransit Feasibility Study. Here's a map of Cary with our existing fixed route service. You can see that there are still fairly large pockets in western and southern Cary that don't have any routes. As ridership grows on our core routes, we continue to hear from people in these areas that they want more transit service. Studies over the past several years show that we don't have quite enough demand for traditional fixed route service in these areas, so Council approved funding in FY24 for a microtransit feasibility study. Microtransit is an on-demand type of service that helps fill in the gaps and connect to the larger transit network. Passengers can request on-demand pickups and drop-offs between designated stops, and an example of this is the Morrisville Smart Shuttle. So the study identified 3 common types of microtransit service: the anywhere to anywhere model, allows riders to request a pickup or a drop-off at any point within the designated zone. This had the highest cost, and it's also not guaranteed to be ADA accessible, so it was not pursued for further evaluation as part of this study. The Anywhere to Stop model requires riders to begin or end their trip at a designated stop. We found that this could be a viable option, but again, it's still not guaranteed to be ADA accessible. So the stop-to-stop model allows riders to travel only between designated stops, and it provides the best balance of cost, availability, and accessibility. We held a 2-month public engagement period during the study, and during that time, we participated in 19 community events, including presentations, festivals, focus groups, and pop-ups. The majority of these were held in Western and Southern Cary. And a survey that was open during that time for about a 6-week period brought in over 1,800 responses. Feedback from the outreach events and the study analysis resulted in 2 main areas of focus. The western zone shown here is about 5 square miles. You can see the Route 4 in purple near the bottom of the map. The study identified 28 potential stop locations, and these would provide access to shopping, parks and rec facilities, schools, libraries, and healthcare. There are also 2 points that connect directly to that Route 4, which provides access to the larger fixed route network. Community feedback identified that the top 3 destination areas in the western zone were Parkside Town Commons, the West Regional Library, and the Wegmans Overture area. The southern zone is about the same size and shows 25 potential stop locations. They also offer a mix of uses and provide 3 connections to the Go Cary Route 5, which you can see entering the zone from the north. Community feedback for this area identified the top 3 destinations as Waverly Place, the Costco shopping area, and the shopping areas near the Kildare Farm Cary Parkway intersection. The initial capital investment and ongoing operating costs will vary depending on the level of service. The costs shown here would support implementing just the western zone or the western and southern zones together. The results of this study do not support implementing a standalone southern zone. Microtransit service is not in the current Wake Transit plan for Cary and would not be eligible for federal funding for 3 years after implementation. The initial capital investment for stops and vehicles could be between $862,000 and $1.8 million, and annual operating costs are estimated between $750,000 and $1.75 million, and it all depends on the level of service. Based on estimated ridership for these options, the annual operating cost per passenger could be between $17 and $22, and as a comparison, our current system-wide cost per passenger for our existing fixed route service is around $13. So tonight, we are asking for council acceptance of the Cary Microtransit Feasibility Study final report, and we will then include capital and operating requests for your consideration in future budget prioritization discussions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Blazy?
A question about Wegmans. That one kind of surprised me.
I'm sorry, which?
The Wegmans is one of the top 3. What do you attribute that to?
So that's an interesting question because we've had questions about that and the Costco shopping area, and there are a lot of employment opportunities as well. So it's not just people that are necessarily traveling for shopping in those locations, but also looking for employment opportunities.
Interesting, okay.
You mentioned that microtransit is not an option for the Wake County Transit Fund. Is the Apex or Morrisville shuttles, are those getting money? Because they're essentially microtransit, aren't they? They're just like a loop.
So Apex is traditional fixed route service. They only have 1 line right now, but it operates similar to the way our fixed route service operates. Morrisville is traditional microtransit service. They are within the Wake Transit plan as community funding areas, so they receive a lower percentage of funding than Cary and Raleigh and Go Triangle services. And it's not that it's not eligible for Wake Transit plan funding. It's just not in there right now. So the last bus plan update that was done a couple of years ago did include the fact that microtransit could be a viable option for Cary at some point in the future. It didn't score high enough in the prioritization framework at that time to be included for funding. So we're going through another bus plan update in about 12 to 18 months, and we'll be pushing to include that. But that looks at a 5 to 10 year funding period. So we're still looking at several years from being eligible for any type of weight transit funding.
So it's possible for the future, just
Yes.
not for the immediate?
Correct.
And your feedback on the top places, excuse me, was based on surveying.
It was.
So like, for example, across from Parkside Commons, there's a proposed large development. In Waverly, there's a proposal for a lot of residents there.
Right, so the top 3 destination, those came from the survey results. So they had access to the maps that showed all of the potential locations, and we asked people to rank the destinations that they felt they would have the most use for, or to give us locations that weren't represented on the maps. And those were the top 3 for each zone.
Can you go back to those again?
Yes. Would you like to look at Western or Southern in particular?
Southern.
Okay.
And while we're looking at Southern, can you talk more about why the data doesn't support Southern only at this point?
So the Western zone had a higher level of demand. There is demand for service in the Southern zone, but not high enough where the cost would make sense to operate the service in just the Southern zone. There's a much higher level of demand in Western. So Southern would be more successful if it operated in conjunction with Western. Western could be successful just on its own.
And when you say higher level of demand, do you mean based on the survey, like who participated in that, or are there other ways that you're measuring that?
That some of it, the study also looked at employment opportunities, the density of developments, residential areas in those locations, and then projected demand based on those metrics in both the Western and the Southern areas, and Western scored higher across the board.
Thank you.
Can we go to Western map now? Thank you. So these top 3 choices that we have for the stop, so what would be the potential route, let's say to Parkside? Will the bus ever go into district at all or no?
So with microtransit, there is no one specific route that is followed. It's all based on demand for trips between the stops.
Okay.
And so part of the reason that microtransit is a good option for areas that don't currently have service is it helps us identify the areas with the most demand, so that as density continues to build, we can plan for future fixed route service to serve the areas where we have the highest use within microtransit. But the way that it operates is very similar to using like Uber or Lyft, where people request a trip, and so it will be a shared service, but the route will depend on the requests that are made and which stops they're asking to be served.
Thank you.
So, excuse me, Kelly, the estimate that you gave us, that range, is that for up to 25 stops in Western and 28 in Southern?
It is. So the capital funding includes the maximum number of stops for both Western and Southern, plus the cost of purchasing the vehicles. So between 2 and 3 vehicles for Western, and then it would require 4 to 5 vehicles for Western and Southern together. The number of stops is somewhat flexible. You don't want to reduce it too much, or you're not serving the locations that people want to access and the demand drops pretty significantly. But there's a little bit of flexibility on the total number of stops.
Did you look at any kind of estimate to say most homes and businesses are within X many, I don't know what you'd say, half mile, quarter mile, whatever, of one of these stops?
Yes, so we have that information in the report.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm wondering if we have information. I understand that anybody can take public transit, but this, the need, I think, would be greater with folks that either do not have an automobile or do not have a driver's license. So I'm always wondering if we have data that shows us, how many, let's say, unlicensed adults are in an area, or how many adults are in an area that don't have a registered vehicle. Is that data that we have access to?
I don't know if we had that data specifically in the report, but we can certainly look to see. With our typical fixed route service, when we have our biannual surveys, we do ask those questions to see if people that are using fixed route have access to a vehicle, the number of vehicles per household, number of licensed drivers. I don't know for an area, a study area, though, that we have those numbers in that report, but we can certainly find out.
I'm curious about it because I know we obviously did a great job gathering information, but sometimes, the total addressable market, as we talk about in product management, right? Sometimes it's not easy to identify potential users of something unless you have sort of that multi-layer of data. And I would expect, much like we've seen with the fixed route ridership, if you build it, they will come, right? So just trying to get an idea of how many folks, particularly in the southern region, might in fact use this service if it were to be offered to them. I'd be curious to know what the sample size is, so to speak.
Well, that was exactly where I was going, but I was coming at from a different angle. I know a lot of people on the very far end of the western side of Cary use our services because they have access because of senior, right? So I wonder if there's a senior population that's already using our services, right, that already feels served, right, because they can do door-to-door, whereas another part of the population that can't use the door-to-door service.
Sure. And one of the benefits of microtransit versus door-to-door is that it is on demand. You don't have, you can't make a reservation
Right.
in advance. And so that, for people that are only currently using door-to-door, it gives them another option that they can decide in 30 minutes they would like to go to the store, and they can request microtransit service instead of having to schedule a reservation in advance.
Which would then maybe be why Parkside Town, all the shopping centers popped up higher, because those are targeted.
I like the idea of the microtransit for our teen population also.
Oh, absolutely.
I have an unlicensed teenager in my home.
Yes, so
Yes.
you would like that very much. So, I mean, I was really glad to see that you had the high schools and the YMCA, places that would be of interest for them. So I think it's fantastic.
And to follow up on that, I was disappointed that they didn't score higher. I really was rooting for the YMCA's.
I know, I was too.
But I've also heard from a lot of residents of Carolina Preserves that, they would like to have some fixed routes as well that is easier for them to, kind of use. I don't know for this microtransit, I'm not too familiar with this, but how do you request? Is it the same process as the other service that we have?
So Carolina Preserve is one of the areas that was identified as having a stop location as part of microtransit. And again, with Western and Southern Cary, we're hearing from people that there's interest, but because the areas are pretty large, it's hard to know right now where those fixed routes make the most sense.
Gotcha.
And so the microtransit, by having stops throughout the area and seeing where the most activity is and the areas that people are most interested in, that's what will help us then build those into a future fixed route service.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have one other one. Can you just clarify for me, the $17 to $21 per passenger, is that per trip?
So per passenger that boards the vehicle, yes. Yeah. And so that's based on the estimated annual ridership, which from the the low end of service in the western zone only, it was estimated to about 40,000 passengers per year. And then the medium level of service together in both zones, which would be the higher end of service, was around 100,000 riders per year.
Okay. Thank you.
But just for anyone who's watching this, that's not the cost to the passenger.
Correct.
Right.
Correct, yes. That is the total cost of the service to
Not
Cary
necessarily. Yes.
divided by the number of passengers. That's how much it would cost us to provide the service.
How does that compare to other forms of transit? For example, the on-demand that we do for our seniors, how does that compare?
So the door-to-door service is quite a bit higher than that. That, I don't want to quote you a number that is incorrect. I was just looking at it earlier today. I know that the fixed route number is 13, and I can get you the door-to-door number, but it was in the 80s, the low 80s.
Okay, yeah, so
So
substantially higher.
it's substantially higher.
Okay.
Other questions?
Just one last one. Isn't Costco in Apex?
It is, so it's right on the edge, but it was one that people in Cary continuously identified as a location that they would like to have service to.
Just-
So we did
So you
recognize
just
that
kinda
as part of the
pulled it
study.
into that. Okay.
Yes.
Drop it off at the limit.
Yeah, right. Sorry, we can't see it from here.
Yeah, and I mean,
Gotta walk that parking lot.
these were just the suggested locations. And so certainly if there's a decision to move forward with any level of service, there's still a process to go through to finalize those locations. And so we still have opportunity to make adjustments.
Okay.
You asked for a council acceptance. You need that in form of a motion.
No, we don't, that's okay.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Blake.
All right, thank you.
We accept.
We now will turn it over to the town manager for his updates.
Mayor, I thought I'd ask Chief Cooper to come up and do for the second report since we're on camera now. Chief, you could give us a weather report?
Thank you, Mr. Stegall. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Hope you're doing well tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief update on our preparations and the weather forecast. As you may know, the National Weather Service has issued a storm warning for the area that goes into effect tomorrow at 1 p.m. and will go until Saturday morning at 10 p.m. The town actually began our preparation efforts early in the day for what they're forecasting, which is 1 to 3 inches of snow currently and up to 2/10 of an inch of ice. So we began brining operations earlier in the week. We actually conducted our first situational report briefing today with all our departments to make sure they are prepared. In addition to that, we've been in contact with all our partners at Wake, Durham, and Chatham County in emergency management to make sure we're communicating and coordinating our efforts there. Any closures and postponements or cancellations will be posted via our social media channels. The bottom line is we're prepared as we can be for whatever weather conditions we may face, and we'll work throughout this event to return to normal operations as quickly as we can. To our citizens, I would like to remind you that our citizens are our number one priority. We would encourage them to be off the roadways tomorrow prior to any precipitation starting. And then please monitor social media channels with the town as well as local media for the latest reports. We had asked that they call 311 to receive any, or if they have questions about anything that's going on in town, that leaves 911 open for any emergencies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
And if any council member would, in addition to Lori, would like to do a ride-along in a snowplow, you can let Matt Flynn know.
Just a girl in a snowplow. Hashtag.
And now for my second item. Later in the meeting, the council is set to adopt the proposed annual work plans for 9 of your 10 citizen advisory boards and commissions. Cary's history with advisory boards is long and rich, and I know, council, how much they mean to you. In fact, most of you, I believe, got your start in Cary government as a citizen advisory board volunteer. I just wanted to say that from where I sit as town manager, the boards and commissions are very valuable to the staff as well. There are 93 individual board members, and like you, we very much appreciate their expertise, thoughtfulness, and commitment to keeping Cary at the top of the arc. The work of the advisory boards is so important and impactful. It's also a lot of fun, which is why each year there are 5 times the number of applications than there are vacancies to fill. And in my experience, that is not common in most communities. And it's a really great problem to have. I encourage all of our citizens to pay attention to the work of council's advisory boards and remind everyone that their meetings, most of which occur monthly here at Town Hall, are open to the public. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stiegel. And just to add to that, if you're watching or in the audience, you may or may not be interested in one of these boards, and I would encourage you to read what is in their work plans, because it tells exactly what they're going to do in these boards, and that might pique your interest. And we will have an open period of applications starting in May, which is not that far away. And these are incredible boards with incredible people, and they're pretty amazing to watch in action. Okay, we'll move to our next item, which is Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at Public Speaks Out online and on the printed agenda. And there are 3 opportunities to participate in Public Speaks Out. You could do it through written comments, or by calling in, or by being here in person tonight. And if you are here in person tonight and would like to speak, I would ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are highlighted. Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments and may speak on any item, any town-related item, as long as it's not a public hearing. And we have no public hearings tonight, so you can talk about anything you want. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced to be fair to all of our speakers, not to be rude. And there's a timer on the podium to help you. It'll start off with a green light. When you have 30 seconds remaining, it will turn yellow, and when your time is expired, it will flash red. And again, that's the point. I'll interrupt you. Again, not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers. I would ask that all of our speakers be respectful in their comments and direct comments to the entire council and not to an individual. And I thank everyone in the audience for understanding that this is a business meeting, and please respect that this is a business meeting. Do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, use props, or do anything else that may distract from the meeting. So now is the time for Public Speaks Out, and I'll first call on our clerk to read any written comments or call on any registered speakers.
No written comments and no registered speakers.
So now, if you're here in person tonight and would like to speak at Public Speaks Out, now's your opportunity, and I would invite you forward. Anyone to speak at Public Speaks Out? Can I get you to move to your left, please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lois McGee, and my husband and I, we go to the park a whole lot, and I love the park. One thing I don't love is the unsafe crossing at when Kildare Farm turns into Dry, and you make a right onto South Academy. 3, I'd say, out of 5 times my husband and I cross that crossing walk with the pedestrian light lit, that we almost got hit. Now, we're smart enough to look to see if cars are coming, so obviously we did not end up on these cars' hoods. But one instance, 2 cars just blew right through, made a right, and then the 3rd car, I actually yelled at the driver to stop. And I'm very concerned for adults, but I'm way more concerned for families who go across that crossing, because when you're with your kids, you're talking, you're looking at that beautiful park, you're not paying attention. Your kids want to go. They want to go on the amusements that's there, and cars don't see them. The visibility, if somebody is sitting at that light, and here's the right turn lane, and they're turning right, if you're the driver, even if the pedestrian sign is lit, you can't see people walking across that street. It's just so unsafe, and I fear that the town of Cary is going to be on the news. I'm surprised it's gone a year without it's happening, and I've done a social thread, and I've heard people say, one person said they were in their car, and they blew their horn to stop a family from continuing to walk in front of a car that was moving. So they stopped the car with their horn, and they stopped the family from getting hit. And I've heard from the crossing guard who works at Cary Elementary, and she has said she has seen so many close calls, and she has saved people from getting in an accident. Now, on the other end of this, I feel it's very urgent. I'm hoping that you put it on a fast track, at least to get a no right turn on red sign put up there. So to make people absolutely stop. The next best thing would be rumble strips. They come around the corner, the library's there. We've known people have passed the curb and gone over. We've seen that happen. They come around the curb. If they hit 5 rumble strips, it's going to wake them up. And then they're going to say, hey, maybe we need to pay attention. And then the other third thing would be white flashing strips, flashing lights, that when the pedestrian sign is lit, they know that people are walking across. Now, the other alternative to me is if all that can't be done in a timely fashion to make it safe for people, is to stop the crosswalk.
Ms. McGee, I have to stop you now. You've exceeded
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
time.
Sorry
If
for
you
that.
have additional comments you would like for us to read,
Thank you.
please leave them with the clerk. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out?
Good evening, Council. My name is Renee Miller, and I'm here to talk with you tonight about a topic that came up at last month's council meeting, 21 REZ 16, the Old Apex residential rezoning. I'm actually quite pleased that the rezoning decision was delayed, and primarily that is because a lot has changed around that area since 2021, particularly when the traffic study was done. Just 1 1/10 miles down Old Apex Road, just across the border with the town of Apex, a mixed-use facility has recently gone under construction. In addition to that, at least one large townhome community has also been completed down that corridor in Apex. The additional traffic on the town of Cary intersection of Cary Parkway and Old Apex has been significantly affected. This intersection is now under additional pressure and insufficient storage at peak hours, with difficulty exiting the shopping center at that intersection and the train tracks. The additional traffic there and between the two sites, I believe, should be considered as we consider further development on Old Apex on the Cary side. It's important for us in Cary to ensure the safety and reasonable convenience for all of our citizens who use this intersection. And so I think it would be prudent for the council to consider asking for additional study of traffic in the area because of the significant change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Anyone else speak at Public Speaks Out? Excuse me. Seeing no one, I'll close Public Speaks Out, and we'll move to our next item, which is the consent agenda. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'll take a few moments to review the consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have Sustainable Fleet, a request to recognize the appropriate EECBG voucher reimbursements, adoption of the 2025 work plans, and recommended Information Services Advisory Board appointments. Would council members like either of these items pull for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no public hearings this evening, and we have one discussion item.
Oh, I'm up.
I'm sorry?
I'm up.
The discussion item brought forward by Councilmember Bush is AI policy for the town of Cary, and I'll recognize her at that time. Also co-sponsoring this was Carissa Comp-Johnson, so that each of them can make their remarks.
Thank you, Mayor. We all know that technology is sometimes feels like it's going at the speed of light, if not faster. But right now, AI technology is at the forefront of it. And everyone we know, if we're not using it ourselves, we definitely know someone who's using it. I'm not sure if you all are aware, but our staff is using it. They're using it to help with transcribing our meeting minutes and saving a significant amount of time. I've used it to plan my own itineraries for travel, and if you're anything like me, sometimes when you're a little annoyed, you put in what you want to say to someone, and AI will say it a lot better. So I know there's a lot of us using it out there, and there's a great number of reasons to do so. And it truly has the potential for us to improve our public service delivery, also better efficiency, improve our decision-making skills. In fact, some of our marketing team is also using it, and our 311 team, to help communicate with our citizens today. And a number of cities, we like to be on the forefront, and so we're not the only ones out there. The number of cities are using AI as well, all with policies in place to ensure that the way that they're using AI is thoughtful, it's transparent with our citizens, and we ensure that our use is aligning to our Cary values. And so my suggestion and my hope is that we could ask staff to take a look at what policy might be important for us to enact here. Before I do that, though, I should say we're not behind. Staff already has an AI procedure in place, which is a set of recommendations for how our staff uses AI when they cite the fact that they use AI as well. But that is a procedure. It's not really talking about being transparent to our citizens about when and where and how we use generative AI in our business. Just to give you some additional ideas of how cities are using it, there's Tempe, Arizona is using it. They're using it with a chatbot, an automated review of employment applications. Amsterdam is using it to look at their energy usage. Our own fire department right now is doing a pilot with thermal cameras and AI to help identify people within a burning building. Santa Cruz is using it to help do translation services into Spanish. Even Elgin, Illinois, is using AI with, I did that just for you, with an online chatbot to help some people who need immediate help in navigating their website. So my thought is that by asking staff to take a look at what we might need around AI policy, we can help harness the benefits of AI technology, also using this transformative technology, but also doing it in a way that's open, transparent, and that our citizens are aware of how, when, and where, and what we're doing with the data. So that is my suggestion to direct staff to ask them to take a look at what a policy might look like, what we need to protect, and have them come back with a set of proposed ideas so that we could then have a conversation at this council table.
Ms. Dawn Johnson.
Yeah, and I agree. Lori did a really great job of summarizing, I think, some of the really exciting uses for AI, a lot of the transformative things AI can do. And in keeping with my personality, I'm the doom and gloom person here. I work in cybersecurity and data protection all day long. I work with powerful products that use generative AI and other types of AI in the product to protect data, to protect confidential data, everything ranging from protected health data to individually identifiable data. And there are risks with AI. There are potential misuses. There are a lot of things that we need to think about, not just right now. This isn't a do it once and set it policy, and I have all the confidence in the world that our staff does not see it that way, just to be super clear. But this is something that needs to be continuously revisited, because AI, as we understand it now, will look so significantly different in a very short period of time that, you know, the way we do things now are going to be entirely unrecognizable, in that, you know, I write a blog, a day just about, And I'm always writing about the evolving security threat landscape. And that's what's interesting to me about AI and how we might use it is AI falls on both sides of that threat landscape. It is something that can do great good. It can help us. It can automate things. It can really make our lives easier. But it, of course, is something that needs to be looked at and scrutinized, and we've got to be, pretty careful about it, right? We have our own internal AI, like our own ChatGPT that we use internally, and then I use, of course, public tools because who wants to write a blog every day, right? So I admit I personally use AI every single day to do my job. I don't think anybody that employs me is listening and knows how I get it done, but.
They do now.
Yeah, that's how, but then they supply us with AI. And so anyways, I just say all that to make you understand that I'm looking at this from a security perspective. And so I'm very confident that our staff will do a really great job. I mean, I can't overstate that. I think that they were already looking at this. This was initiated by council, but this was already well on staff's radar. So I just wanted to share that I'm the doom and gloom here and Lori is the sunshine when it comes to AI.
Thank you. I appreciate your suggestion. We have three options, and your suggestion's the best, in my opinion, to refer the request to a future council meeting, have staff create a report with recommendations to prepare. The other options are do nothing, and then another option is to take action tonight without really any information. And both of those, in my opinion, are bad options. So that's where we are this evening, and I would open it up to other council members for questions, comments, or if anybody wants to make a motion.
I'll make a couple comments because I work in this space. I think it's a good idea to pass this to staff, but I would recommend that we be very open-ended about what they would bring back to us and not just limit it to this idea of a policy. Because a lot of governments find that it's better to start with a strategy. And we don't even have a data strategy, really. So, I mean, a lot of governments find that a data strategy is a good precursor to an AI strategy. And then as you're working in an iterative manner with AI, you're starting with little projects. And for those of you who don't work with AI, it's kind of used in three different ways, three different approaches. One is that it's embedded in the tools you use, and you think about ChatGPT or Copilot. One would be that it's embedded in your software as a service. And then the third way...
Salesforce.
Pardon?
Like it is in
Salesforce, yeah. And then the third way would be in point solutions that are intended to do something. So an example of that would be Wake County uses AI to reassess every property in Wake County every single night. So that's a point solution. And so a lot of governments find that they start with a project and they start learning what the pitfalls are, what the opportunities are, and they devise their strategy around that and start building their policy as they go. So rather than saying, let's go out with a policy when it's untried and not really well known, this way you can kind of build it over time. And as Carissa said, it's going to change. Everything's changing all the time. But I'd recommend that we just give our staff the latitude to be able to come back with what they think is the best approach for strategy, governance. I mean, for a long time I've thought that we probably should put data governance in place and then now AI governance. And so a lot of governments find that kind of goes strategy, guidelines, governance, and then policy. And so I just don't want us to put the cart before the horse, by jumping out with a policy when maybe what we want to first do is start with strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that there has been in the past, I know that when we've met, at least with the ICB, we've talked about a data management strategy. I don't know where that is, but I definitely agree with you that holistically, that's an absolutely good place to start.
I would like to add something. I was trying to hold back a bit. Let me just say something. I agree with you, Mayor Pro Tem. This is an area where I'm really passionate about, and I've worked for many years. I feel like what you said is exactly right. We need a governance model before we can develop a policy. But what that policy verbiage is also going to be that matters. Is it going to be outward facing? Is it going to be about the security aspect of the data that we have in our system? So it depends on several things, so I agree with you.
And I would just add, though, with AI, I've been on both sides of this. I think while we take the time to do the due diligence necessary to go through, like you said, very holistically and look at everything that leads up to a policy that we all feel really comfortable with, I think we need to not take too long to have guardrails.
I agree.
So there's my doom and gloom, bringing it back to that
No,
again.
I think that's right. And, there's,
And those can be relaxed later, maybe, or
Right.
moved
They
can go in
moved a
parallel.
little
and they
bit, but yeah.
vary a lot, too. I mean, a lot of what, Laura, you talked about was generative AI, which will have different types of
Absolutely.
guardrails than traditional AI. So,
Right.
But at some point, the town will be using all types of AI. It'll be part of our work.
Of course.
So we want a motion?
So what I guess I will do, based on Councilmember Robinson's idea, is make the original motion, which is to ask staff to go out and do some deep dives into looking at more than just policy, but AI and its implications and unintended consequences for Ms. Doom and Gloom, as well as for its operational opportunities, as well, and especially with respect to guardrails, what do we need to do there? And also take a look at what is missing with respect to data governance, data management, and if those can be done in parallel, that would be great. Also, it's a long motion, to do that sooner rather than later. Now, that's not, I don't want to give an absolute time frame because there's so much else going on, but, within the next few months to come back with it.
Can I ask, I just want to make, since this will actually be an adopted motion, I want to make sure I understand. So AI, who, what, when, where, why, and how, essentially?
Yeah, but I think what you're talking about is more of a AI 101. I don't want an AI 101.
We don't need that.
No, this has to be an AI for government.
Right.
And what we need to be doing that we're either not doing, or things more proactively that we should be doing, and what we should be worried about, and how do we put in the guardrails around that. So for instance, private data, right? Folks that are unbeknownst to them, that are using ChatGPT in the real world, and let's say they're putting in it's data. It's not private, but they're putting it out there. That now becomes part of that national language model that other people could then have access to. There should be a policy, not just a procedure, because there is one, but a policy that says we won't use our citizens' data like that. We'll be transparent, but we will be protective of our citizens' data.
Based upon,
That's just an example of one.
yeah, I just want to make sure, and as I've eagerly confessed to the council, this is something I'm new to and trying to learn as quick as I can. Having the strategy first. And I would also, wouldn't we have to have some background education for those that don't know?
That often is part of strategy.
Right,
Part
right.
of strategy is saying, okay, we're going to engage our workforce, and part of that engagement is doing introductory training, giving them tools to play with, but saying what the parameters are for the use and so forth. Strategy would be saying, we're going to use these data for our systems at this time, and these are the ones that are being used. We're going to, adhere to these different practices and using that data. So you're kind of coming up with kind of that, and strategy is really good for governing bodies to get involved with because it's high-level thinking.
Right.
And it says how ambitious do we want to be with our data? How cautious do we want to be with our data? So it's a really good starting place.
So that was going to be my next question, actually. Would you like us, and we can come back more quickly, once we have a suggested strategy, come back to the council then, and then that can help inform the policy? That would be part two?
Well, so the one thing about this that is unlike a lot of the things we do in Cary is that there's a lot of cities who have already done this, that are, maybe 2 years ahead of us. So we can look at the best practices that are out there. The federal government already has an AI policy, right? Which they're never known as being on the forefront of things when it comes to government. So there are ways for for us to get there a little bit more quickly than if we were starting from scratch.
Right.
I do think we need to help bring citizens, the rest of council and staff along with us. So whether or not that means creating or leveraging some training that exists, I don't know what the right thing is, but we're also, the town is members of GovAI, which is a government AI symposium that I recently attended some of their webinars. So there are things out there that many, many other cities have already done. So I think that we can look at what's there and tap into that, and then also create the strategy and then policy associated with it.
So Councilmember Bush, I have a question for you. From what I understand out of this conversation, what we all are talking about is how do we secure the data? How do we make sure the sensitive information is always secure? And in this case, it's going to be like, obviously, the technology is AI. Is that correct?
It's more than that. I mean, that is absolutely, that was the example that I gave that you chimed right off. That is certainly one of the risks, taking Councilmember Cone-Johnson's thought, that is certainly one of the risks associated with when you put information out into the national language model, you're putting data out that can then be used by other people, right? Just like when you use Google, same thing.
But I think
So that is one of the worries.
Gotcha.
But there's lots of opportunities as well.
Because
right?
I think some of the things that you probably are saying, the staff probably already has a policy on data governance, right?
No, I mean, not the
Like
one
procedures.
as articulated in the scope that Councilmember Robinson's articulating. We don't.
Okay.
I think, I think at some point you're going to want to embark on data governance and AI governance. And when you do that, what you're talking about is the who, the what, and the how of using data and AI. And so a lot of governments, what they'll do is they'll put together task force with representatives from every department. And those folks represent like the data stewards. And they're saying, okay, I have this data that I'm willing to contribute into, blah, blah. And you get those data sharing practices established. And that's kind of work that's.
Yeah, I'm, definitely understand that. Actually, I understand it all now.
Okay.
And I'm only being extra particular because you're adopting a motion. It's one thing, we're at a work session or my one-on-ones, and you're saying, hey, can you kind of do that, and we figure it out. But when you're going to be voting on something, I really want to make sure I understand, and make sure that the council understands what they're voting on as far as the direction that's being given to me.
And that's where I was going.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to restate what I think I've heard everybody say, because we had a discussion, not really a motion. So the motion, I think, would be to ask staff, excuse me, to come up with an all-encompassing strategy for AI with initial focus on guardrails and education, working toward a strategy of eventually having a policy.
I would say, first of all, it's data and AI. I wouldn't just say.
Data
AI.
management,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
data governance. And
So is that close?
yeah, I don't know that they can do that in 2 months.
That would be very
Right?
aggressive.
That would be very
I-
aggressive.
I wouldn't
But
do
a
the-
plan?
I wouldn't do a timeline. I would ask them,
But a plan
They
for,
know-
a plan for it would be great. A plan for what it would take to put together a data management and data governance and AI policy strategy to bring back to council. Because my guess is that there will be resources that are needed in order to do this. If it were just writing a policy, no. But if we expand it to be data governance and data management, then yes.
But an immediate set of rules of engagement, guardrails, until the policy is set, and they've got.
Right, a deep dive. And then what I would ask, if staff has any questions with regards to this, because we've been broad and specific at the same time, that they could come back to council with any additional clarifying questions.
Oh, yes. I think part of it for the benefit of the rest of the council, and I referenced the Real-Time Information Center, the police tour today. I think when you do that, you'll see some of the benefits, because that has AI, that has video policy elements. And so one thing that we've talked about, there are some key policy decisions that the staff has been making in the interim, which I think is part of what's led to Lori asking some of these questions on, and we do need some feedback on that. So we have a lot of these, the parts that are a little disparate right now that we need to bring together under a larger data strategy. So, yeah, I think I got it.
All right, so,
And if I don't, I'm confident this group will be comfortable telling me I didn't.
so I gave a suggestion of what I
Yeah,
thought the motion
and
should be. So
is that
would
your
you please?
motion?
No, would you please restate
Or
it?
just say as stated.
So as the mayor stated, along with data governance and data management, and Councilmember Cone Johnson's comment with respect to ensuring we have guardrails, then I make that motion.
Give me a second, and then
Second.
I'll ask questions. All right, we have a second. Now, do council members understand what they're voting on?
Do I really have to answer that?
I was trying not to look at you. I kind of
Wrote
looked
it
that
down
way.
right here.
Basically, we're going to have an all-encompassing
I
review, and they're going to come back with a
I
strategy.
understand. I was concerned if you were going to ask me to say something.
No.
That would just confirm what people already suspect, and that is my intelligence is artificial. And that's what
You've been waiting to use that joke this whole time, haven't you, Jack? That is a good one.
Any other questions? We have a motion on the table. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Stiegel, you okay with that motion?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay.
That was very helpful, thank you.
Okay. We have no closed session and no further business. This meeting is adjourned.